Shalom Havreim, James Trim here, and today I want to share with you some material from primarily from the Zohar, dealing with the servant of Isaiah 52 and 53, the stone that the builders rejected, that becomes the chief cornerstone, and the heel of Esau. And all of this, I hope, is going to help you understand not only the identity of the Messiah, but why Rabbinic Judaism has not accepted the identity of the Messiah, and why Christendom, the part that Christendom has played in that, and what the true nature of this particular ministry that I am engaged in, what its nature is, and what makes it different from other ministries. So before we get started, once again, I need to please ask people to consider to donate to this unique ministry. This is what makes it possible to put this material together and to present these teachings. And hopefully they are of benefit to you. For those that may not know, my wife is disabled, chronically ill, and suffers chronic pain, and I'm her caretaker here at home. And so what I do while I'm home as her caretaker is compile this material, put these videos together, write free blogs, put together a free scripture commentary that we're putting up online, little by little as it's written, and also producing a work on the halacha of Yeshua and things of that nature for the restoration of the ancient sect of Nazarene Judaism, the original Jewish followers of Yeshua as the Messiah. And you'll find out in this study why you cannot count on the established denominations of Christendom to bring the Messiah to the Jewish people. That's not going to happen. That's not how it works. It's not going to happen. And actually, you'll find out that Christendom has done more to harm that effort than anything else. So that being said, you can donate by sending donations to wnae.org by PayPal, or there is a link at the bottom of this in the description of this video where you can donate to support this work. And hopefully you will strongly consider that, and also like these videos and share them. Okay, so we have handouts for this video, which is what we usually try and do often to make it easy to follow along, and especially in a video like this where we are doing a study, an in-depth study of material in the Zohar. And many of you may not have a copy of the Zohar. Maybe you do. And so you can pull out the relevant volumes and follow along. But if you don't, I have put in the handouts each of the portions of the Zohar that we are going over. So if you look in the description of the video, there's a link to where you can find the PDF file handouts that you can either print out or look at on your screen or a secondary screen as you follow along in the study. So our first handout is titled The Zohar on the Servant, Isaiah 52:13. Isaiah 52:13 is the first verse in the servant song of Isaiah 52 and 53, at least by most reckonings. Now, I actually like to start in verse 7, as I pointed out in a recent video, but verse 13 is the traditional beginning of the servant song. It's certainly the passage that first says, "My servant." And Rabbi Shimon, who is the traditional editor-redactor of the Zohar, in fact, the Zohar takes the form of commentary on the Torah that is similar to, say, the dialogues of Plato, in the sense that it has Rabbi Shimon and his Chavara, his friends, his study group, class, if you will. They're all sitting around and they're discussing, sometimes they're walking, and they're discussing Torah. And in much the same way that Plato's dialogues, for example, the Republic, has Socrates and his friends sitting around discussing matters. So the Zohar we're looking at volume 1. The Zohar is traditionally in Aramaic. The original Aramaic is in 3 volumes typically. However, English editions are in various numbers of volumes. Back here I have the Sonsino edition, which is in 5 volumes in English. And then we have the newer Pritzker edition, which is in 12 volumes in English. So we have volume 1, page 181A, and the beginning of this study is going to begin. We're going to go through this primary text that we're going to be following, starting on page 181A of volume 1. Rabbi Shimon further discoursed on the text, "Behold, my servant shall prosper, he shall be exalted and lifted up, and shall be very high." This is Isaiah 52:13, which is the opening phrase of the servant song. Happy, and then he goes on to say, "Happy is the portion of the righteous," he said, "to whom the Holy One reveals the ways of the Torah, that they may walk in them." This verse contains an esoteric meaning, talking about Isaiah 52:13. So we're going to get into some real deep, what's called sod level material here. There's 4 levels of understanding of the scriptures. The Peshat is the plain, simple meaning. The Remez is the implied meaning. The Drash is the allegorical homiletical meaning. And the Sod is the hidden secret meaning. Put on your seatbelt, because we are going into a Sod esoteric meaning here. And it's going to be very beautiful. This verse contains an esoteric meaning. When God created the world, he made the moon and made her small, for she possesses no light of her own, but because she accepted her diminution, she receives reflected light from the sun and from the other superior luminaries. Okay, so what this is telling us is that the moon doesn't have any light. There's no such thing as moonlight, really. Moonlight is actually sunlight being reflected, and to a small degree, starlight. But primarily, moonlight is sunlight being reflected. So we're going to put our finger there, if you will, move to our next handout. And if you're actually looking in the Zohar, just bookmark that page, because we're coming back to it, but we're just kind of opening a parenthetical from that. We're going to look at volume 1, page 238A of the Zohar. This is our next handout. The servant is the Messiah. And this is a statement in the Zohar here that will tie in with what we just read and make it very clear that it's speaking of the Messiah. We did produce a study recently, which I'll put in the links down in the description of this video, that the Zohar and the Talmud and the Targums and the ancient rabbinic sources, prior to Rashi at least, identified the servant as the Messiah. So Zohar volume 1, page 238a is talking about Zechariah 9:9, which is also a messianic prophecy, and it says, it is strange that the Messiah should be called poor. Rabbi Shimon explained that it is because he has nothing of his own, and he is compared to the holy moon above, which has no light save from the sun. The Messiah will have dominion and will be established in his place, Below he is poor because he is of the side of the moon, and above he is poor, being a mirror which does not radiate, the bread of poverty. Yet withal he rides upon an ass and upon a colt to overthrow the strength of the Gentiles, and God will keep him firm. So, what we want to get here is that this idea of the moon being small is really tying in with that the Messiah is called poor, lowly, and riding upon an ass, as Zechariah 9:9, and that this has to do, allegorically speaking, with the idea that an allegorical relationship with the moon, which has no light of its own, but only reflects sunlight. And so we can see that that directly ties in with what we were just reading on the previous handout in Zohar, Volume 1, page 181, about the servant of Isaiah 52:13. Happy is the portion of his righteousness. Anyway, that says, um, he made the moon and made her small, for she possesses no light of her own. Uh, but because she accepted her diminution, she receives reflected light from the sun and from other superior luminaries. So clearly, in Shimon's understanding of these passages, of this passage, as we see elsewhere in the Zohar, this is talking about the Messiah. And this is what the Zechariah 9:9 is telling us when it talks about the Messiah lowly and riding upon an ass. So our next handout moves right back, goes right back to our initial passage in the Zohar that was our starting point, volume 1, page 181a. If you actually have a Zohar that you're going through and you put your finger there, you can now go back to that, or you put a bookmark there. So we're back and we're picking up exactly where we left off in that passage. So there's no dots or missing text. We're going straight on through page 181a. So it continues immediately with, now, as long as the temple existed, Israel were assiduous in bringing offerings, which, together with the other services performed by the priests, Levites, and Israelites, had for their object to weave bonds of union and cause luminaries to radiate. This brings us to another passage of Zohar. You can put your finger there again, or if you're using a real Zohar, and go to volume 2, or a bookmark because it's a different volume. Volume 2, page 212a. We read, in the Garden of Eden, there is a hall that is called the Hall of the Afflicted. Now it is into this hall that the Messiah goes and summons all the afflictions and pains and sufferings of Israel to come upon him. So they all come upon him. And had he not eased the children of Israel of their sorrow and taken their burden upon himself, there would be none who could endure the suffering of Israel in penalty of neglecting the Torah. Thus it is written, surely our diseases he did bear, and our pains he carried, referring to Isaiah 53:5, which is talking about the servant. As long as the children of Israel dwell in the Holy Land, they averted all afflictions and sufferings from the world by the service of the sanctuary and by sacrifice. But now it is the Messiah who is averting them from the habitants of the world. Okay, let's go back to our initial passage of Zohar and pick back up exactly where we left off. In our next handout is the Messiah is revealed like the moon. So we're back in volume 1, page 181a, and we're going to actually go into the way the Zohar is referenced is by volume of the 3 volumes in Aramaic, and like the Talmud, the pages are laid out virtually identical in every Aramaic edition, and so you have a volume number, a page number, and a column because it's laid out in 2 columns. So there's column A and column B. All right. So we're going to, if you were looking in the Aramaic, we're near the bottom of column A and going to pick up at the top of column B in this quotation. But after the temple was destroyed, there was a darkening of the lights. The moon ceased to receive light from the sun, the latter having withdrawn himself from her, so that not a day passes but is full of grievous distress and afflictions. The time, however, will come for the moon to resume her primordial light, and in allusion to this it is written, "Behold, my servant will prosper," Isaiah 52:13, which is the passage that Shimon began with and said he was going to reveal the esoteric meaning of, the sod level, Esau level meaning of this passage. And what we are learning here is that there is a special significance to the phases of the moon in its transition from full moon to new moon, uh, and eventually from new moon back to full moon again. And that's why the Rosh Chodesh, the renewed moon, because in Hebrew, the word is Rosh Chodesh. It's the new moon. It's actually the first appearance of a sliver of light on the moon again, and it's a restoration of the moon, if you will, and it's symbolic of this. It's a revealing of the moon, and it's a restoration of the moon, and it is symbolic. And we're finding out here what it's symbolic of. The time, however, will come for the moon to resume her primordial light, and in allusion to this it is written, "Behold, my servant will prosper." The prospering of the servant being the restoration of the moon, giving her light once again. That is to say, there will be a stirring in the upper realms as of who catches a sweet odor and stands alert. He shall be exalted, Isaiah 52:13, from the side of the most exalted luminaries, and lifted up from the side of Abraham, and shall be high from the side of Isaac, very from the side of Jacob. At that time, then, the Holy One will cause a stirring on high with the object, i.e., the intent, of enabling the moon to shine with her full splendor, as we read, "Moreover," this is Isaiah chapter 30, verse 26, "moreover, the light of the moon shall be as the light of the sun, and the light of the sun shall be sevenfold as the light of 7 days." There will thus be added to the moon an exalted spirit, whereby all the dead that are in the dust will be awakened. This is the esoteric meaning of "my servant," i.e., the one that has in his hand the key of his master. So not only will the Messiah be revealed, but with his revealing will ultimately come the resurrection. Um, So the Zohar is telling us that the revealing of the Messiah is like the revealing of the moon. Initially, the moon cannot be seen when it goes completely dark. Um, However, in time, the moon is gradually restored to its full light. So is with the Messiah. When the Messiah is fully revealed, the resurrection will take place. All right. Let's turn to our next handout. We're finished with that portion of Zohar. Um, But I want to pick up here with something next called the next handout is titled "The Stone That the Builders Rejected." And we'll start out by looking at a passage in Matthew chapter 23, verses 38 through 39. Um, and the reason for this is I want to show how the Zohar is tying in with what Matthew says as we go along here. Um, Behold, your chapter 23, verses 38 through 39, Yeshua is speaking. He says, "Behold, your house is forsaken to you desolate." What house is that? The temple. He's talking about the temple. He's talking about the same thing the Zohar was talking about with the destruction of the temple and the darkness. And I tell you that you will not see me hereafter, the Messiah, you will not see me hereafter until you say, "Blessed is he that comes in the name of Yahweh. And here he is referencing Psalm 118. That's a very important psalm. That's the Hallel psalm um, that we recite or cant during the at the end of the Passover Seder. In fact, when it says in the Gospels that Yeshua and his Talmudim at the end of the Seder sang the hymn, it's the hymn is Psalm 118. All right. So it says, "Blessed is he that," Psalm 118:26 says, "Blessed is he that comes in the name of Yahweh. We bless you out of the house of Yahweh," which is the temple. If we look a little bit above that phrase, we see in verse 22, "The stone the builders rejected is become the chief cornerstone." This is very important. Uh, Follow along here. This is very important because we're going to shift gears now into Psalm 118, verse 22. "David indeed," this is back in the Zohar again, volume 2, page 232b. "David indeed was king in this world and will be king in the time to come." Referring to Mashiach ben David, the Messiah, the son of David. "Hence the stone the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone." Psalm 118:22. "For when the sun turns away his face from the moon and does not shine upon her, she has no light whatever, and so does not shine." This is referring to the same thing the Zohar was talking about earlier, the destruction of the temple, and it's the same thing that Yeshua was talking about, your house shall, the desolation of the house of Yahweh. "But is poverty stricken and dark on all sides. But when the sun turns towards her and radiates his light upon her, then her face is illuminated, and she adorns herself for him as a woman for a man. She thus is then invested with the dominion of the world." So David adorned himself after this very manner. Now, he would appear poor and dejected, but then again he would be revealing in riches. In other words, he was a little shepherd boy, he was lived in poverty, and then he became king. Hence David's declaration, "I am small and despised, yet have I not forgotten your precepts." It behooves instead every man to follow this example and to humble himself in every aspect or every respect, so as to become a vessel in which the Holy One, blessed be He, may find delight. This lesson has also been expounded in connection with the phrase, "with him also that is of contrite and humble spirit," Isaiah 57:15. So the Zohar is telling us that when the stone is rejected, the sun turns away his face from the moon and does not shine upon her. So now I want to look at another passage of Zohar in our next handout titled "The Heel of Esau." But to summarize before we read this is our next handout, "The Heel of Esau," and it's going to be Zohar Volume 1, page 138a. What we've learned here is that the servant is of Isaiah 53, 52 and 53, is the stone that the builders rejected, but it becomes the chief cornerstone. And now let's look at Zohar, and all of this is like the moon and the phases of the moon, which loses its light and becomes dark, and then is renewed and restored and begins to reflect the light of the sun once again, so that the moon is hidden and then revealed. So Zohar, Volume 1, page 138a, and this one is this starts to get really deep here. So it says, "And his hand had hold on Esau's heel." This is referring to Genesis 25:26. Okay. Uh, Jacob's hand is on Esau's heel. He put his hand on Esau's heel in order thereby to force him down. According to another explanation, the words, and his hand had hold, imply that he could not escape him entirely, but his hand was still clinging to his brother's heel. Esoterically speaking, this is key, this is the so level. This is going to tie in with everything we've learned so far. The so level. Esoterically speaking, the moon was obscured through the heel of Esau. All of this is tying into this strain of understanding, this thread of understanding in the Zohar, that's telling us that the servant, which is the moon, the servant was uh, 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 hidden, obscured. Yeah, obscured is the word here. The servant was obscured. The identity of the servant is obscured. He's the stone that the builders rejected, becomes the chief cornerstone when the when the moon again reflects the light of the sun in the allegory of the phases of the moon and the renewal of the moon, the Rosh Chodesh. Okay. Esoterically speaking, the moon was obscured through the heel of Esau. Now, this is very deep. I'm going to show you what it means. You can only see and understand what this means in the Hebrew. You could study the English Bible all day long and never understand this passage. Esoterically speaking, the moon was obscured through the heel of Esau. Hence, it was necessary to deal with him cunningly so as to thrust him downwards and make him adhere to the region assigned to him. So, the heel of Esau is what obscures the identity of the Messiah or the servant of Isaiah 53. The heel of Esau prevents Judah from recognizing the Messiah. The heel of Esau um, uh, is the reason that the report of Isaiah 53 is not believed. The heel of Esau is why the stone that the builders rejected is rejected. And the removal of the heel of Esau, as we will find out, is the reason that it becomes the stone that the builders rejected becomes the chief cornerstone. It's the reason that the identity of the servant of Isaiah 53 as the Messiah is revealed and becomes the chief cornerstone. And so let's now look at our next handout. And this is the really the climax. The next handout is we're going to actually look at Isaiah 25:26 in English and in the Hebrew. So Isaiah 25:26. And after that came forth his brother, and his hand had hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Yaakov. And Yitzhak was 60 years old when she bore them. Now, if we look at this in the Hebrew, and I laid out the Hebrew in nice big friendly letters for you in the handout. And if we take the first letter of each word, which is a process called notary kan in Hebrew, and working backwards, if you will, left to right, and we start with the name of Yaakov, Jacob, and we end with Esau going backwards, we spell the name Yeshua. And if we continue through the next two words, we actually spell Yeshua comes. And so I put I put those initial letters in red, Yud, Shin, Vav, Ayin, going left to right. You can see the name of Yeshua right there. And then the next, and the Ayin in Yeshua, which is the last letter of Yeshua in Hebrew, the Ayin is the first letter in the name Esau. It's the Ayin of Esau. The first letter of Esau is the last letter of Yeshua's name here in this, the way this is laid out in the Hebrew. All right. And then the next two words, the next two letters are um, Beit and Aleph, which mean come or comes. Yeshua comes, it says. Um, so the moon is obscured in the shining the light of the Messiah by the heel of Esau. If we take the ayin, if we take Esau and we take the ayin out of here, out of this, the heel of Esau, if we take the ayin, it spells Yud Shin Vav, not Yud Shin Vav Ayin. Now, for many of you, that's going to ring a bell because Yud Shin Vav isn't Yeshua, it's Yeshu. And Yeshu are the initial letters for a phrase that is used in Rabbinic Hebrew, meaning may the name be blotted out forever. It's a curse. It's a curse on the name of Jesus, if you will, in Rabbinic Judaism. Um, and this name Yeshua instead of Yeshua results from obscuring the light of the Messiah with the heel of Esau, literally here. And the authors of the Zohar knew this. Rabbi Shimon knew this. This is a great mystery and a great secret that is revealed in the Zohar. Now remember, Yeshua said in Matthew 23, verses 38 through 39, behold, your house is forsaken to you desolate. And I tell you that you will not see me hereafter until you say, blessed is he that comes in the name of Yahweh. In other words, they wouldn't recognize him, they wouldn't see him until the stone that the builders rejected becomes the chief cornerstone, and that happens when the heel of Esau is removed that obscures the light of the moon, so that the moon reflects the sunlight once again and reveals the Messiah is revealed and becomes the chief cornerstone. So when Messiah's identity is no longer obscured by Esau. Now, who is Esau? Well, anybody familiar with rabbinic literature knows that Esau is a term used in the rabbinic literature to refer to Christendom. So what this is telling us is that Christendom has obscured the identity of the Messiah. That Judah, the house of Judah, the Jewish people, the rabbinic Judaism at least, and Karaite Judaism, the non-believing Jewish people, have not come to acknowledge, not come to recognize the Messiah because the Messiah has been obscured to them by Christendom. Now, you might ask, how is that? I know and have known Orthodox rabbis that know quite well that Yeshua is the Jewish Messiah of Judaism. They won't reveal that for a lot of reasons. They won't come forward with that. Some of them have confided in me over the years, but they won't do so because doing so would do more to support Christendom or Christianity than it would to help the Jewish people in any way. In fact, the Jewish people, by and large, have rejected Jesus as the Messiah because Jesus is the one who, according to Christians, the Jesus they present, came to free you from the bondage of the law and is associated with pagan customs, pagan holidays, Christmas and Easter, and so on, and uh, came to free people from bondage to the law. This is not the actual Yeshua, who was the embodiment of Torah, who was there was a prayer breakfast back in the 80s in which Rabbi Ben Goren was talking with a Baptist preacher, Criswell, and Criswell says to him, "Hey, what are you going to do when the Messiah comes and it's Yeshua, Jesus? You know?" And uh, Ben Goran responds, he says, I wouldn't really have a big problem with that. What are you going to do when Yeshua comes and he's an Orthodox Jew? So the identity of Messiah has been obscured by the presentation of Yeshua as a blonde haired, blue eyed, goatee, Roman toga wearing figure with that came to free people from the Torah and is associated with pagan customs and holidays. Um, Christendom has done a great deal to take Yeshua's Jewishness from him and make him into a Greek speaking Gentile-ish figure that as a opponent to Torah is more of a fictional character than anything, and which, if he were the real Yeshua, Jewish people should reject because he couldn't possibly have been that figure, couldn't possibly have been the Messiah. It would be at complete odds with the Torah. And a Torahless Messiah is no Messiah at all. So Christendom is the problem. Um, many several years ago, I was asked to meet with a mixed marriage couple. They were engaged to be married, and he was an evangelical Christian, and she was from an Orthodox Jewish family. But they, star-crossed lovers. They had fallen in love, and they were planning to get married. And one of the members of his family reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you meet with this couple because they really don't know what they're going to do. They just know that they want to get married and they're in love, but they don't know how they're going to reconcile the fact of where they're coming from, where they're each coming from." So I said, "Sure, I'll meet with them." And so we sat down to meet, and as we opened the discussion, I said, "Now," I looked at each of them and I said, "Now, this may surprise you, but before we get started, I want to let you know that she is closer to the truth than you are." And both of their mouths just dropped open. And then I began to expound the truth to them. But Christendom is the problem. And this ministry is the antidote. We are restoring the ancient sect of Nazarene Judaism. This is a Jewish ministry that teaches that Yeshua was the Jewish Messiah of Judaism. And our goal is to get Esau out of the way, the obscuring of Esau out of the way and out of the picture, and reveal the real Messiah, the Jewish Messiah of Judaism that's been obscured by all of that. That is the purpose of this ministry. And what other ministry, Messiah believing, teaching Yeshua is the Messiah, is a ministry that would or could take you or take Jewish people through a study of the Zohar in this depth and show that the Zohar, Rabbi Shimon knew well. I'm going to say something very controversial here, but I think it's implicit in the text that we've just studied. Rabbi Shimon knew Yeshua was the Messiah. And he knew that was, at least in his time, secret knowledge that was obscured, and that was the esoteric knowledge that he's speaking of here in these passages. And once you understand that, and you can, show that. Do not try this at home. I'm not sure, but I, if this message is a message that needs to be brought to Orthodox Jewish people, that the Zohar, if you understand it, and you understand this chain of passages, it becomes clear that Yeshua was the Messiah. Rabbi Shimon knew Yeshua was the Messiah, and that he also knew that Messiah's identity had been obscured by Christendom, by Esau, and that only once Esau's heel could be gotten out of the way, once we could get Esau out of the way, that then the Messiah could be revealed, and the stone that the builders rejected could become the chief cornerstone, and that is the purpose of the work that we are doing. So, what have we learned? Well, we've learned that there's some great wisdom in the Zohar. And the Zohar reveals the Messiah, and we've learned that the Messiah is like the moon in the lunar cycles. They reveal to us this allegory of the Messiah, that his identity has been obscured by the heel of Esau, and that only when the heel of Esau is taken out of the way can his identity be revealed as Yeshua. And in doing so, in getting Christendom to stop remove the obscurity of the Messiah from Christendom, and revealing the real Jewish Yeshua as the Messiah, then and only then, ultimately, can the stone that the builders had rejected become the chief cornerstone, and in doing so, uh, um, the Messiah be revealed like the new moon, the Rosh Chodesh. And this is why the new moon, the Rosh Chodesh, is so important. All right, one more time before we leave, I need to please ask you to please consider supporting this very unique ministry. What other ministry? Seriously, folks, what other ministry is there that is going to show you the Messiah in the Zohar? Not only show you the Messiah in the Zohar, but show you how the Zohar actually reveals esoterically on the sod level of understanding that the Messiah's identity has been obscured to Judah by Esau, by Christendom, and that when that obscurity is removed, then the Messiah can be truly revealed, the true Messiah can be revealed and go from being the stone that the builders rejected to becoming the chief cornerstone. What other ministry can show you these things in the Zohar and chain together 5 or 6 Zohar passages together that all tie in together from various parts of the Zohar to teach this stuff? I don't believe that there's another ministry out there doing this sort of thing that can do this sort of thing, honestly. So I have a unique background and some unique talents that allow me to fulfill this calling that I have been, with which I've been called, I believe. So please consider supporting this work with your tithes, offerings, and donations, which can be sent to donations at wnae.org, or you can click on the donate button at the bottom of not at the bottom of the video, but in the comments, not the comments, in the video description at the bottom of this video on YouTube, and also on the on Nazarene Space, where it will be posted there. Okay, so please consider making offerings to support this unique ministry to bring Yeshua, to reveal the Jewish Messiah Yeshua to the world, and to remove the heel of Esau from the equation and get the heel of Esau out of the way so that the real Yeshua can be recognized. All right. Shalom, shalom, everybody. Thank you very much for those that have supported this ministry. And we can't do it without you. We couldn't present this material without your help. So once again, I rely on you. Shalom, everybody. And hopefully this helps you understand some very deep things about the Messiah, and why he has been obscured to the Jewish people, and why the purpose of this ministry is to remove the heel of Esau and reveal the true Messiah to be Yeshua. All right, shalom, everybody.